Living life to the fullest is the best revenge. Today, I want to share with you a captivating story. A story about a husband who discovers his wife's infidelity. How will he react to this betrayal? Will he find it in his heart to forgive her, or will his fierce revenge befall those who shattered his trust and love? This question troubles many, and in this story, we will try to find the answer. That day, Brenda Johnson ran into Cynthia Larson at the grocery store. Cynthia shared with Brenda that Jack had returned home to run the family business while his brother Jeff was recovering from an accident. Brenda passed this information on to her daughter Laura, who seemed stunned by the news. "Laura," she asked as she put the jar of peas in the pantry, "did you hear that Jack is back?" Laura's husband, or ex-husband, she did not know what condition they were in now, clearly agitated, exclaimed, "Mom." Laura hesitantly confessed, "I don't like to discuss my problems with Jack. I'm not even sure we're still married. I've not received any legal documents or divorce notices." Brenda pressed, "Have you ever started divorce proceedings?" Laura shook her head, avoiding eye contact. "He's the one who left. I thought he would be the initiator." Brenda shook her head in disbelief. "Your situation is truly unique. It's been 6 years since he left, and in all these years, you have never tried to get in touch, be it a call, an email, or a letter. Can you still have feelings for him after everything he put you through?" Laura looked away and fell silent. "Oh no," her mother exclaimed. "Don't tell me you're the kind of woman who tolerates cruelty and thinks you deserve it. He abandoned you. It's his fault, Laura. A man who leaves his wife without saying a word does not deserve any sympathy. Since he's in town, it's time to divorce him. He was a wonderful man when you tied the knot, and he remained exceptional until he left. I respected him. He seemed responsible, kind, diligent, and devoted to you. And now he's gone. You still have a lot of time ahead of you. It's important to find a reliable man who will help you build a happy family. I'm able to make my own choices, Mom. I am 27 years old. I have a stable job in my own house. I'm independent, and I'm not a burden to you and Dad, so I'd rather you didn't try to control my life. All I want is for you to find happiness, my dear. I don't believe you've been really happy since the day Jack left. If he really cared about you, he wouldn't have left like that. He must have found someone else." Laura immediately denied this, insisting that Jack would never cheat. Her mother was stunned by how quickly and steadfastly her daughter defended the man who suddenly abandoned her. How could she continue to support him? What was her motivation? Laura claimed that there had been no quarrels between them before Jack's departure, but did not reveal the reason for their sudden breakup. Brenda doubted Laura's honesty and suspected that she would never reveal the whole truth. That night, Laura Masterson tried to sleep, tossing and turning in a futile attempt to find peace. The image of Jack haunted her every time she closed her eyes. He was the most charming, calm, and devoted man she had ever met, but she knew that she had ruined their relationship. After returning to Stone Ridge, he reappeared in Laura's life. She always knew that sooner or later their paths would cross. Despite the years that had passed, she was still trying to find the right words to tell him about it. How can I convey the depth of my regret and at the same time not seem insincere? Their relationship had been irreparably damaged, and she knew that a simple apology would not be enough. Her life was far from a fairy tale, it was confusing and incomplete. 2 days later, Laura's sister Kate, a graduate student at Ohio State University, returned from work to visit her mother. Laura, who studied at the Faculty of Journalism, got a job at a local media group for the summer. Kate came up to her and said, "I saw your husband today. He came to us to discuss advertising. Would you like to hear about him?" Their mother quickly added, "If it's not him, then tell me." Kate replied with a slight grin, well, if someone hoped that he had disappeared, then someone will have to be disappointed. He's probably the most attractive man I've ever seen," Kate remarked, raising an eyebrow at Brenda. "Can I assume he's not bald?" Brenda asked. "He was wearing a t-shirt with pockets and jeans, and as far as I could see, he looked disheveled. I watched him from the next room. He didn't notice me," Kate said. "Did you catch what he was saying?" Laura asked quietly. Kate was shocked. "How could he be stupid enough to leave you?" she exclaimed. No, he just advertised for Donna and paid her, but his daughter is just gorgeous, Laura explained, watching her sister's shocked expression. Wait, does he have a daughter? Brenda asked, looking at Laura in surprise, who was speechless. That's the reason he left. He got some girl pregnant. You're actually lucky that he's gone out of your life, Kate interjected, trying to comfort her sister. I don't know, seeing him in that tight shirt and jeans, I don't think many women would feel the same way, Laura reflected. His attractiveness was undeniable. Besides, his daughter seemed too old to have been born after he left Stone Ridge. I think she's about 12 or 13, Kate commented. How can he have a 12-year-old daughter? He's only 28, Brenda thought. He should have been 16 when he became a father. It doesn't add up. Laura was silent as the conversation continued. I heard him introduce the girl to Donna as his daughter. Her name is Kansas, and she's just beautiful, Kate commented, admiring the athletic girl who seemed to be very close to her father. Does Jack's daughter have the same dark hair as him? She asked. She's actually an amazing blonde, Kate replied, watching her sister closely. Whatever her background, it suits her very well. I just realized something, Kate exclaimed. Since Jack is her father and you're still married to him, you must be her stepmother or something, Laura. It was just cruel, Brenda vowed as Laura hurried to the bathroom. There's something fishy here. I have a feeling that the truth will be revealed soon. In a small town, it is not customary to hide secrets for long, although this one managed to remain unknown for 6 whole years. Who was that cute girl in the next room? Kansas asked as she and Jack were leaving the media group's office. She seemed to be fascinated by you. Kate, my ex-wife's sister. I noticed that she was stunned by my presence. Was your wife as beautiful as her sister? Kansas asked with a small smile. She was even more beautiful. Laura was simply stunning, Jack replied. Kansas watched him for a while before asking, you really loved her, didn't you? Why did she cheat on you? Jack confessed, I wouldn't have told you this if I'd known we were moving back to Stone Ridge. Please keep this between us. If she doesn't talk about it herself, no one will know the reason for our breakup. There's no need to hurt her now. You are something else. Most guys would want revenge for what she did to you, but not you, Kansas added. She may have ruined a good story, but I'm even glad she did it. I can't imagine where or who I would have been if you hadn't moved to Thompson and started working with my dad, Jack reflected on the past, admitting that at first he doubted the current situation, but in the end, everything turned out as well as possible. Now I have the most wonderful daughter you can ever dream of. It gives me great joy to represent you as my daughter. Despite the fact that Brian was your biological father, we both know that he was a really wonderful man, Jack said with a hint of sadness in his smile. He asked Kansas to address him as Daddy if it was more convenient for her, stressing that he now considers her his daughter and loves her as if she were his biological child. Kansas expressed gratitude, acknowledging that Jack didn't need to accept her into his life, but he did it voluntarily. She felt lucky that they already shared the same surname. We were lucky that Brian informed us about this in advance so that we could plan everything. He was the one who insisted that we start the adoption process. If your father had expressed his desire for me to adopt you before he passed away, everything would have been much easier. I miss him very much, but I'm grateful to be your daughter. Do you mind? Kansas asked suddenly, worried. Jack reassured her by saying, that's what Brian wanted. He knew he wouldn't be here to see you turn into a strong and independent woman. He did me a great honor by asking me to be your father. The decision was unequivocal, and there was no doubt. Kansas noted that it would be difficult for him to find a new mother for her if he was already married. She offered to meet Laura and find out if she had divorced him. Jack advised against this because in the adoption documents he indicated that he was married. Single men who adopt young girls usually do not receive approval from social services. Jack promised that if a woman couldn't fully accept his daughter, she wouldn't have a chance with him. He assured Kansas that she would always be his daughter and her children his grandchildren. There was no room for discussion on this issue, knowing how painfully Kansas had suffered the loss of her mother as a child and her father last year. Jack constantly reminded her of his love and devotion. Before moving in with his mother, Jack had clearly defined which topics were not open to discussion in his relationship with Kansas. He agreed to help run the family construction business and made it clear that he would not tolerate interference in his personal affairs. His mother, Janet, agreed without hesitation. Jack was stunned by her quick response, but decided not to pursue the subject. While washing in the bathroom, Jack overheard a conversation between Kansas and his mother. "Grandma, we met Laura's sister, Kate. She is very beautiful. Do you think Laura is as beautiful as her sister?" Kansas asked. Jack had to strain his ears to catch his mother's reply. It was obvious that she was trying to hide her words from him. He had made it clear that Laura, his family, and everything related to Laura were non-negotiable. "Darling, Laura is an amazing woman," she whispered. "She was beautiful when she married Jack, but now she has turned into a confident, capable young lady. I don't see her often because of the strained relationship between her and Jack, but she has always treated me with respect. If it were up to me, I'd like them to still be together. I would like to, but unfortunately, it is not in my power. I promise not to talk about it, so let's change the subject before your father finds out about it," Janet finished. "Dad took me to see the new school today," Kansas said when Jack joined them at the kitchen table. "The football field looks amazing. I really want to try out for the team. The qualifying competitions will be held next Tuesday afternoon. I just found out about it from the internet." "I didn't know you played football," Janet exclaimed. Jack had expected more enthusiasm, but this information seemed to bother his mother. "It's my favorite sport," Kansas said. "When we lived in Thompson, I was one of the best players on the team. We only lost one match." Jack chuckled and remarked, "She's the best player on the team." "That sounds great," Janet praised, wondering if it was worth telling Jack who the coach was. She couldn't help but laugh imagining how the first training session would go and how Jack would undoubtedly be surprised. After all, it was he who decisively announced that Laura's name was banned. She was only following his irrational instructions, but it seemed like it could come back and haunt him. While Laura watched the mother of one of the players chatting nearby, she observed young women in their 20s chasing footballs back and forth. Among them, a tall blonde stood out, whose movements were graceful and precise. She easily controlled the ball with skillful footwork. Laura watched as the girl, who was the best goalkeeper last year, crossed the ball. Politely withdrawing from the conversation with the chatty mother, she approached the blonde girl and watched her closely. Sensing her presence, the girl paused her ball game and met Laura's gaze. "Hi, I'm the coach of the team," Laura began. "Everyone calls me Coach Masterson. You seem to know a lot about football." The girl's jaw dropped in surprise when Laura spoke. After studying Laura carefully, she finally addressed her. "Hello, ma'am. I'm Kansas Masterson. It seems that my father was once married to you. I'm a big fan of football, but if you think I won't be treated fairly, I'm ready to try my hand at field hockey. I don't want to complicate your life." When the other girls gathered around to listen, it became clear that the new girl was the daughter of Mrs. Masterson's ex-husband. It seemed like the two had never crossed paths before. Laura was caught off guard when the girl revealed that she was Jack's daughter. After thinking about this information, she realized that she should have guessed it from the way Kate described her. The girl was not only beautiful but also incredibly athletic. "Well, Kansas, I have to admit that this is a shock to me. I had no idea you were Jack's daughter," Laura said, trying to pull herself together. "Just know that your play on the field, dedication to training, and ability to fit into the team will ultimately determine your playing time. I do not intend to treat you unfairly," she assured the girl. As Laura spoke, the girl studied her face carefully, as if determining the nature of their relationship. When Laura finished, Kansas nodded slightly in understanding. "Grandma Masterson knew you were a coach," Kansas said with a grin, "but she kept quiet because of my father's rules. I can't wait to see his reaction when I tell him that you're training me." Laura looked around the field and asked, "Is your father not here?" "No, he's driving an excavator this afternoon," Kansas replied. "He helped Uncle Jeff after the accident, but he was right about you." Kansas started to leave, but Laura called her name. Turning to face Laura, she spoke softly in her ear. "What did he mean when he said he was right about me?" "What did he say?" Laura waited anxiously for Kansas's reply, realizing that she hadn't seen or heard from Jack in years. She didn't have enough information about him. If he still despised her, she should have known about it right away. "Well, Coach," Kansas whispered, trying to be heard only by Laura. "Dad says you're the most beautiful liar he's ever seen." Laura's reaction was as if a cold shower had been poured over her. She sighed, fell to her knees, and sobbed. Kansas expected to see contempt, anger, or embarrassment, but the devastation her words caused made her completely rethink the situation. After hearing the story of how Laura Masterson cheated on Jack, Kansas harbored a deep grudge against her. Laura's act almost ruined Jack, and Kansas vowed to punish her if the opportunity presented itself. But Laura Masterson did not match the negative image that Kansas had created of her. She was loved and respected by other girls and treated with great respect. Despite this, Laura was visibly shaken by the rude words spoken to her by Kansas. These were the words she vowed to say to herself if she ever came face to face with the woman responsible for Jack's suffering. Kansas did not feel any satisfaction from her thirst for revenge. She went to the bench, sat down, and prepared herself for the rejection she knew was coming. The team's assistant coach had just arrived and demanded to know what Kansas had said to Coach Masterson. Looking through the list of names on her tablet, she asked for Kansas's name. "I'm Kansas Masterson," she replied. "I'm sorry if I caused trouble." The stunned woman repeated, "Masterson? Are you related to Jack Masterson?" Kansas nodded and replied, "He's my father," at the same time trying to keep a proud look. The woman advised, "I think you should leave. Coach Masterson is a wonderful woman. She doesn't need to be reminded of her husband on the football field every day." Kansas nodded and headed for the gate, ready to leave the playground. But when she felt a hand on her shoulder, she turned around and saw Laura Masterson hugging her with tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Laura repeated, snuggling up to Kansas. Not knowing what to say, Kansas stood and watched Laura cry until eventually, the sobbing subsided. The other girls gathered around again, their eyes full of surprise. "Your father is really an outstanding man," Laura said, urging Kansas to stay and join the team. "If you're like Jack, you'll be a valuable addition. I won't let my emotions get the better of me again, I promise. Please come back." Coach Masterson took Kansas to the bench and turned her around to face the rest of the team. "I won't deny that just a few minutes ago I was on the verge of a breakdown. This is Kansas Masterson, my ex-husband's daughter. I was very touched by her unexpected arrival. It's been 6 years since I last saw her father, and even though I knew he was back at Stone Ridge, I was still stunned by Kansas's presence today. I urge all of you to be kind to Kansas. She is not to blame for these disruptions. It would be unfair to hold her responsible." With a heavy heart, Laura fixed her gaze on Kansas and asked the question she was afraid to get an answer to. "Is your mom here somewhere?" "I would like to meet her and tell her what a wonderful daughter she has," Laura said. Kansas replied excitedly, "Mom died when I was 3 years old, so now it's just me and Dad." Laura felt guilty for her earlier rudeness and apologized. Kansas explained that her father punished her for such behavior, calling her a witch. Laura's head was spinning as she tried to make sense of the information she had received. How could Kansas's mother have died when she was only 3 years old? That was about 10 years ago, when Jack was still in high school. She preferred to leave it a mystery for another day. "We started on the wrong foot," Laura admitted. "Let's start with a clean slate. I'm Coach Masterson, and you're Kansas. I'll tell you about the rules and what I expect from the team, and then we'll start training." As soon as training was over, Kansas jumped into her grandmother's SUV to head home. "How was your first training session, dear?" her grandmother asked. "It went pretty smoothly," Kansas replied. "All the girls treated me well, and some of them were very talented on the field. I think we have a strong team." Janet answered positively and asked about the coach. "What do you think about the coach?" "I've heard that she's very friendly." Kansas replied with a smile, "Why talk about it, Grandma? What do you really want to know?" Janet continued, "How's your relationship with Laura going? Was she shocked when she found out about your identity? What do you think of her? I have to admit that she is actually much kinder than I thought. It's been 6 years, and she's still very worried about Dad. Jack didn't tell anyone about the reasons for his departure. I don't know how much he trusted you, but they were a lovely young couple who seemed to love each other deeply. One evening, Jack just got into his truck and drove off, leaving Laura behind, Janet said, recalling that he never contacted Laura again. There are rumors that Laura did not know about the reasons for Jack's sudden departure. It would be unfair to blame Dad for his actions, Kansas angrily exclaimed. She knows why Dad left. She kicked him out. He's not the villain here. Janet tried to calm her down. I'm sure Jack has already discussed this with you. I'm just glad he didn't leave Laura for no good reason. Can you tell me why he left? Kansas replied, only Dad or Coach can explain it to you. I promised Dad I wouldn't tell anyone. When Jack returned home, dinner had already been prepared for him. After he finished tidying himself up, he sat down at the table and began to slice a pork chop. Turning to Kansas, he asked how her football practice went. Kansas admitted that things didn't start well, noting that the coach looked upset when she introduced herself, but after some conversation, everything got better. Jack noticed his mother flinch when Kansas briefly recounted her day, a sign that there was more to it. Is your coach Laura's friend? He asked. I should have thought about this option. Do you believe that you will receive a fair assessment? Laura Masterson is my coach, Dad. Jack was momentarily speechless, realizing the full weight of Kansas's words. It dawned on him that he should have taken the time to better understand Laura's circumstances. His mother beamed when Jack turned to face her, knowing full well what conclusion he had come to. Jack reluctantly admitted that it looked like they would have to communicate with her regularly. He expressed gratitude that she finally asked about Laura, a math teacher at Stone Ridge High School who had been coaching football for 3 years. Despite the fact that she lost only 2 games last year, there were rumors about her marital status. Some suggested that her husband left because of infidelity, but Jack quickly denied these rumors, stating, "That's not true. She never cheated on me." Kansas, Jack interrupted sternly, "What did I tell you about such conversations? I expect you to speak and behave respectfully when you're around Laura. Please don't do anything that I would have to apologize to her for." Jack insisted, his tone firm. That would be awkward, to say the least. Jack noticed how Kansas's complexion dimmed, and she quickly looked down at her plate. Taking a deep breath, he asked, "What have you done, Kansas? How bad was it?" I may have used a derogatory term towards her, but I quickly apologized, Kansas admitted. I think we have solved this issue. She treated me no differently than she treated other girls during training. Jack wanted to know the details of what had been said and regretted sharing the reason for his failed marriage. I have to tell you about this in silence. We have to make sure Grandma doesn't hear, Kansas said. I understand that it was inappropriate, but it came out. I'm sorry, Dad, she added and stood up. Kansas walked over to Jack and whispered in his ear. Janet couldn't hear what the girl was saying to Jack, but it was clear from his reaction that he was unhappy. Kansas, I trusted you and you couldn't keep it to yourself, Jack complained, trying to hide his annoyance. Now I'm in a quandary. I hope you learn from this mistake. I'm sorry I said it as quickly as I did, Kansas apologized. It hurt her more than I thought. I forgot to mention that she informed the girls that you were her ex-husband. Now we can help you find a new partner. Laura felt lost and depressed. She tried to maintain a sense of normality by attending her team's training sessions. Left alone at home, she allowed herself to cry for hours in her favorite armchair. School was still a few weeks away, but autumn sports training had already begun. Even if she didn't have to get up early to teach, she still had to prepare for soccer practice the next day. As she drove to school, she reassured herself that everything would get better. Yesterday's drama wouldn't happen again. Rushing to the back seat of her SUV to get her team gear, she almost collided with Jack Masterson. Hi, Laura. Can we talk? I want to apologize, he said. Laura hesitated to answer. It was hard for her to believe that Jack was apologizing to her. Is everything okay? She asked. Kansas told me about what happened yesterday, he explained. Jack admitted that he had made a mistake in trying to raise her better and admitted that it was partly his fault. He regretted telling her the reasons for their breakup, trusting only her and his cousin Brian. Jack assured Laura that his daughter was too young and acted out of a desire to hurt her. Despite the current situation, Laura couldn't help but admire how well Jack looked in a casual cotton t-shirt and jeans. His physique was impressive, a flat stomach, strong pectoral muscles, and prominent arms. She also noticed that his hair had grown longer since the last time they saw each other. She couldn't deny that he looked good. His jaw was well defined, and his smile was captivating. He radiated masculinity. "We both know it's true, Jack." "Unless you think I'm beautiful," Laura said, wiping away tears. "I don't want you to continue to suffer because of what happened 6 years ago," Jack replied. "It's in the past. We both live on. It's time to let go of the past and focus on the future." "Just forget about it," Jack repeated. "It sounds simple, but how can we erase all the memories of our love, our marriage, and the good times we spent together?" "We have to try," Laura said through tears. Jack wanted to comfort her but hesitated, not knowing what to do, so he stood on the sidelines, feeling helpless and watching her tears. While waiting, he took the opportunity to observe his ex-wife. Her legs were bronzed and muscular, and her hair was pulled back in a braid that emphasized the graceful line of her jaw and slender neck. Laura was still the most amazing woman he had ever noticed. Finally, she pulled herself together and, meeting Jack's gaze, said softly, "I'm sorry, Jack, for a lot of things. I was stupid when I got involved with that jerk. I was just as stupid when I let others believe that you broke off our relationship for no reason. I was hoping that you would come back and forgive me. Admitting to others that I was stupid would only complicate our chances of reconciliation, but you never came back, and I didn't tell anyone the truth. You left, and I stayed here, so I chose the path of least resistance. I let others put the blame on you, but I decided to confess and reveal the truth to everyone. You don't deserve harsh criticism and condemnation from the community. It was my actions that made you leave, and I understand that a noble person like you will never be able to forgive me or take me back. I didn't expect you to forgive me. I don't think I deserve it," Laura admitted. Jack reassured her by saying, "I don't feel any hard feelings about anything. I'm sure people thought I was a jerk for leaving a wonderful woman like you. They doubted my sanity rather than my character." Laura looked at him with admiration and said, "You've always been a gentleman. Your daughter is beautiful, and I don't blame her for her words. Please don't be too hard on her." "I think she's going to be the brightest player on your team," Jack commented. "I am grateful to you for diffusing the situation," he added. "I hope we can work together without drama. I must say that you've become even more beautiful than when we first got married," Jack remarked. "Thank you, Jack," Laura replied. "You seem to have gained muscle, especially in your arms. I didn't think you were a figure skater before, but now that description suits you." "Thank you for taking the time to clarify the situation for us," Jack said. Jack noticed a group of 12 girls standing nearby, watching him while he was talking to their coach. Realizing that he was distracting Laura from her duties, he acknowledged the situation and headed to his truck to leave. "Is that Kansas's father?" a red-haired girl exclaimed, turning to her friends. "He's very attractive. My father's hair is falling out, and his belly is big. He looks much older than Mr. Masterson. Why did Coach Masterson break up with him?" another girl mused. "After the divorce, my mom is looking for a new husband. I can mention Kansas's father to her." During the football season, Laura often treated her parents to dinner. Her mom usually cooked right after training, but one day she had a bridge club meeting and went to cook the night before. On the second evening of the training, the family gathered together. "How's the team doing?" her father asked, handing himself a potato. "Do you think the girls will perform as well as they did last year?" Laura was sure she had assembled the strongest team. While she was thinking about how to discuss Jack and Kansas, Kate, her sister, spoke up. "Your star player is coming back, right? I heard that she has one more year before entering high school." "I'm sure we have a new star on the team," Laura replied. "You've seen her recently, right?" Kate clarified. "Are you talking about Jack's daughter who plays soccer on your team?" "It's hard to believe, isn't it?" chuckled Kate. "She obviously has a lot of experience playing football. She's fast, strong, and smart, Laura said. Most girls admire her skills. She's also a kind person, Kate said admiringly. Wow, Kate exclaimed. How did she react when she found out that you were her stepmother? She was as shocked as I was when we first met, Laura explained. I introduced myself as Coach Masterson, and she immediately guessed that I was married to her father. I have a feeling that we will get along well. She's such a sweet girl, Laura remarked. Have you seen Jack? Brenda, her mother, asked. Did he finally have the courage to talk to you? Actually, I talked to Jack today before training. We managed to discuss some things. It wasn't as awkward as I expected, Laura admitted. We talked in an adult way without resorting to accusations and reproaches, Laura said. Jack was incredibly kind, Laura confessed. He even mentioned that I look prettier than when we first got married. Hallelujah, Kate chimed in. That means you're not married to him anymore. You have the freedom to find a husband who will love and respect you. I had almost everything, Mom, Laura said, tears streaming down her face. I didn't think I deserved a husband as good as him. I didn't keep the one I had. He's the one who ran away, Laura's father commented. I should probably find him and tell him what I think. I wouldn't recommend doing that, Dad. He seems to be able to take care of himself, Laura warned. Did he seem contradictory to you, Laura? Brenda asked, comforting her daughter. That's putting it mildly. You're a strong guy, Dad. I know you want to protect me, but please don't come into conflict with Jack, Laura begged. He has changed since he left, showing signs of maturity, strength, and confidence that he did not have before. Brenda noted that 6 years later, he returned to the city with his blonde daughter without having explained himself to his wife. She wondered how his wife had refrained from physically confronting him. The family noticed that Laura was still in love with him, as could be seen from her behavior towards him. The situation is difficult to understand, Kate stated, but she loves him more today than the day he left. Laura burst into tears, exclaiming, I'm just a stupid woman. Come on, say it. I ruined all the best I had. I deserve to be laughed at and even worse. Kate replied firmly, Little sister, you're not stupid. I do not know what happened between you, but if you still love this idiot, I am on your side. I'll help you in any way I can. I want to see you happy again. There's nothing we can do. He divorced me. We will never be together. Helping me come to terms with the fact that it's over is the best thing you can do for me, Laura told her sister Kate, who simply hugged her in response. Although she didn't say anything, Kate made a mental note to talk to Jack and try to understand why he left Laura and ask if there was a possibility of reconciliation. The next morning, as Jack was preparing to give orders to his men, Kate Johnson entered the building. The men, knowing about Jack's past relationship with Laura, silently watched Kate walk towards him. Kate, how can I help you? Jack asked in a professional tone. I would like to invite you to lunch at Ellie's restaurant today. Will we meet there at noon? Although Jack had no choice but to agree, he would never refuse a lady's request in public. Besides, he always liked Kate and didn't mind having lunch with a charming girl. When Jack entered the restaurant, he found Kate already sitting at a table. She got up from her seat and hugged him warmly. I am grateful to you for joining me, Jack. You look amazing. You've turned into an amazing man, Kate said calmly. You've always been a gentleman, Jack. Let's make an order, and then we'll talk. I have so many questions, Kate admitted. First of all, how did you manage to get in such good physical shape? After placing the order, Jack began answering Kate's numerous questions. After leaving Stonebridge, I went to visit my father's cousin's son, Brian Masterson, Jack explained. Although we only crossed paths a few times, Brian and I often chatted on Facebook, and he was always friendly. There was a significant age difference between us. Brian was 10 years older than me. His wife Anna tragically died a few years earlier as a result of a medical error. When I first met their daughter, Kansas, she was only 6 years old. Unfortunately, Brian himself was diagnosed with cancer a year and a half ago. As our bond grew stronger, he saw my deep affection for Kansas. In light of the fatal prognosis, he made the selfless decision to facilitate the legal adoption of his daughter by me. It was a difficult process, but we managed to complete everything just before he passed away almost a year ago, Jack said with a heavy heart. Oh, Jack, it must have been incredibly hard for you. I can't even imagine how Kansas handled it. I saw you in our office the other day, and she seems like a wonderful girl. It is clear that you are very dear to her. It surprises me that a single man was able to adopt a teenage girl. I've heard about how difficult such adoptions can be, Kate said. Between you and me, I had no idea that Laura had actually divorced me. I indicated in the documents that I was married, believing that at that time it was true. Kansas has become my whole world, and I can't imagine myself without her. Despite this, she still worries about adoption, knowing how single men are treated with suspicion. She strives to help me find a wife as soon as possible, but deep down she just needs maternal care. Kate knew that Laura thought Jack had divorced her, but now Jack claimed otherwise. She put this contradictory information aside for later. Kate got straight to the point. One of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, Jack, is because I think it might be useful in the future. You've seen Laura and you know how wonderful she is. She graduated from college and received a teaching certificate 2 years ago. She bought a small ranch, and the kids at school just love her. I don't think she's been in a relationship since you broke up. Is there any chance that you will resume the relationship? You and Laura were the perfect couple, Kate said confidently. I'm really sorry, Kate, Jack said. That's not going to happen. We've both changed a lot since we got married, and now we're completely different people. We went our separate ways and there's nothing left between us. You've both changed, but I think it's for the best, Kate countered. I'm sure she still loves you, Jack. What happened that made you leave? She must have told you something about it. Did she say it was my fault? Jack reasoned. She said you had a disagreement and you left without saying a word, Kate remarked. But now, 6 years later, I'm back, Jack replied with a slight grin. What have you been doing all this time? Kate asked, noting the muscles on Jack's arms and chest. Brian bought a large warehouse during the last economic downturn. After building a gym, Brian decided to add yoga classes to it. 2 years ago, yoga classes began to be held in an upstairs room. Surprisingly, I became a yoga instructor, personal trainer, and weekend sensei for teenagers. Kate, do you remember how close I was to getting my degree before I left? I kept working on it. I took evening classes and now I have a teaching certificate. It was useful in teaching martial arts and yoga. Brian and I both have degrees, and it helped us in our work. Kate hugged Jack once more. I really had a great time at lunch, she said. I am disappointed that you are not going to return to Laura, but I hope that we will remain friends. Jack nodded in agreement. I always appreciate friends. Please give my regards to your parents, he added. Kate hesitated before warning him. I advise you to stay away from them. They are unhappy with the way your relationship with Laura is developing. Jack just shrugged in response. It was to be expected, Jack grinned and replied. Your ancestors have always been devoted to you girls. I can't blame them for not liking me. Moreover, I would be surprised if they loved me. The next morning, Laura woke up feeling better than she had in years. She had no idea how guilt and anxiety had consumed her life for the past 6 years. She made peace with Jack and with herself. Although she wished things were different and that Jack still loved her, she knew she had to accept reality and move forward. In the afternoon, when Laura was walking to the training field, she noticed that Kansas was doing some stretching exercises, and the other girls were gathered around watching her. Soon they tried to imitate Kansas's movements, barely keeping their balance. One of the girls, fallen to the ground, asked in surprise, "How can you bend over like that and not fall?" Kansas explained that her stretching exercises were a combination of yoga and martial arts, which her father taught her. She offered to help teach the other girls but admitted that she didn't know where to start. Although I know how to do the stretching exercises, I don't understand how I got to this state, Kansas admitted. Does your dad also know how to do these stretching exercises? Asked a surprised friend. I thought men weren't as flexible as women, especially with muscles like your dad's. They can do it if they train, but a lot of men don't want to make the effort, Kansas replied. They prefer sports like martial arts, where they can focus on hitting and blocking. My father gained most of his strength and flexibility through yoga classes. One of the girls suggested that Jack show them a stretch. I know he's busy, but maybe we could stay after practice and learn. I'm not sure Dad has the time, and I don't think the coach will approve of it. She may regard this as interference in the affairs of the team. He always makes sure that an adult is present during classes with children. Kansas, I'd love to stay and accompany you if Jack wants to show the girls how to stretch, Laura intervened. I can already imagine how other teams are watching you girls during the stretch. We will have an advantage even before the start of the match. Jack was stunned when he arrived after practice that evening. All the girls from the team, as well as Laura and several mothers, welcomed him. Dad, the girls saw me doing the pre-game stretching and want to learn how to do it, Kansas explained. I may have mentioned that you are a yoga instructor, and they hope that you can work out with us after training for half an hour. Laura noticed how Jack's expression softened as he listened intently to Kansas. The smile did not leave his face, he absorbed every word of his daughter. Laura felt a pang of jealousy seeing how much Jack undoubtedly loved his daughter. It's probably possible, but you need at least one adult to be constantly present, Laura suggested. That's not going to happen, Jack said firmly. Kansas said you need an adult, Laura reminded him. I have already promised the girls that I will monitor their training. Can I at least practice with them? She asked. I'm sure some of us moms would like to take this opportunity if you don't mind. I don't think I'll ever be as good as Kansas, but I definitely could use some improvement, said a slightly overweight woman with red hair. Let's start tomorrow. I will take a change of clothes with me and recommend everyone to dress appropriately for yoga. I will teach classes for young and athletic girls so that they can progress faster. Moms should not despair if children study faster, Jack warned. Jack always stuck to his yoga instructions for at least an hour. The girls were already athletic and tried to achieve the grace and strength that Kansas showed. 3 single mothers attended classes all the time, and Laura understood their appeal. Their low-cut tops and tight yoga pants attracted attention. Jack enjoyed working with the girls, learning their names, and recognizing many of their families. Since he grew up in Stone Ridge, he was pleased with how diligently they followed his instructions. Laura stood out from the rest. She dressed more modestly than her teammates but looked amazing. Despite her slim build, she was surprisingly strong and skilled, able to surpass many other girls. She approached training confidently and gracefully, never looking arrogant or indecisive. Laura adhered to a friendly yet professional style of behavior, which earned the respect of her peers. Preparing for the upcoming match with a local rival, the girls started the pre-match warm-up. During training, Kansas brought a Bluetooth speaker and turned on music while leading her team. Players and fans from other schools stopped to watch in amazement. The girls were pleased with their game, which led to a confident victory over their opponent. After the game, Kansas approached Laura, surrounded by her teammates. Coach, have you ever thought about taking part in the Harper football tournament? Kansas asked. There are different age groups competing there. Our team is great for the age group of 12 to 14 years old. I think we have every chance to win or at least perform well in the tournament. I've heard about this event from other coaches during seminars and training sessions, Kansas continued. It looks like the teams are made up of the best players from different schools, which makes the competition tough. In addition, the entry fee is $500 per team, which will go to support the women's shelter in Harper. I doubt the school board will approve such expenses, but won't you agree to coach us if we participate in the competition and the entrance fee is paid by a local business? Kansas asked seriously. Laura looked at Kansas and then at the other girls who clearly wanted to participate in the tournament and needed her guidance. Just remember that the competition in the tournament will be much tougher than what we are used to in our league, Laura said. Coach, last year I participated in the tournament as part of a visiting team. We managed to win 2 great games, but unfortunately, in the 3rd game, we lost by 1 goal to the absolute champions of the tournament. I truly believe that our team has everything it needs to compete with them. We just need an experienced coach to unlock our potential. It looks like you've already taken a few steps in this direction because you mentioned having a sponsor, Laura remarked. Yes, I have already asked local companies to provide support in this endeavor. The team and coaches are ready to pay the entrance fee and accommodation for the upcoming tournament on Columbus Day weekend. The championship game is scheduled for Monday, so they will stay for 3 nights. After learning about Kansas's efforts, Laura was filled with respect and admiration for the blonde player. She was thrilled to be able to participate in the finals. Laura felt a sense of pride for the group of girls standing in front of her. They may not have the same level of skill as their potential rivals, but Laura never doubted her team's abilities. "Let's do it!" Laura exclaimed enthusiastically. "There's no better way to improve than by playing against the best. Tell me what needs to be done, and I will do it." "Thank you, Coach," the girls exclaimed in agreement. "Here is the website. I've written down your username and password. You have to go to the website and let them know before midnight. They need another team, only 16 people, which is ideal for a tournament with 1 participant," explained Kansas. "The entrance fee has already been taken care of." "It's impressive you've organized everything," Laura said with a laugh. "Our group is called the Ridge Runners," Kansas said. "We will wear t-shirts with our names on the back and the name of our team on the front. It's going to be great." Later, when Laura was alone with Kansas, she asked if Jack was a sponsor of the team. "Our sponsor wished to remain anonymous," Kansas replied, smiling broadly. "Our sponsor has made it clear that in order for the deal to take place, you must agree to train us. They think you're a great coach and will have a positive impact on us young girls. If I agree to train you, Jack will have to stay away, right?" Laura teased. Kansas has warned, "Don't underestimate my father. He keeps a close eye on everything. He wants only the best for me and the team." Less than 2 weeks later, on a sunny Saturday morning, Kansas led her team out to warm up, preparing for the first game. A significant crowd from Stone Ridge came to support the team. Jack enthusiastically cheered for the team, watching the girls maintain a positive attitude and camaraderie while preparing for the first match. He couldn't help but notice that the opposing team was closely watching the warm-up. The girls performed stretches and poses with impressive coordination, but the opposing team quickly scored a goal in the first minute of the game. Just 2 minutes after the first goal, the same girl scored again. Laura was worried about her team's chances of recovering from the defeat. They had been unbeaten all season, winning 6 games in a row. Shortly after, the game was interrupted as a player from the opposing team was helped off the field with a sprained ankle. Taking action, Laura subbed Kansas out of the game. "Do you see what's going on out there? We have to stop this girl from scoring," she exclaimed. "She dominates the field. I want her to feel the pressure when she gets the ball. Make sure the girls understand that they need to run after her. She's the best player on their team, and if we can stop her, we can win," Laura stressed. After that, the Ridge Runners regrouped and focused on preventing the best player on the other team from taking a single effective shot on goal. By halftime, they were leading by 2 goals. "Girls, you know how important teamwork is to me," Laura reminded them. "Kansas is our top scorer, and we managed to hold them off in the first half. Now it's up to the others to step up and succeed. When Kansas goes to one side, quickly pass the ball to the other, where they aren't focused. Deliver powerful shots at the goal and make the goalkeeper work hard." In the second half, the Ridge Runners entered the field with a more aggressive attitude. The girls fired relentlessly at the goalkeeper, scoring twice from rebounds. With less than a minute left in the game, Kansas finally scored her first goal, giving the Ridge Runners a 1-goal advantage. The game reached its climax when the last goal was scored. The Ridge Runners secured their place in the next round, and the girls exploded with joy. They hugged each other and Laura, then turned to hug their fans. Laura noticed how Jack wrapped Kansas in a bear hug, and then the team's moms showered him with kisses. Laura felt a twinge of jealousy but quickly brushed it off, realizing that she had no reason to be upset. When she turned to find her parents, she felt strong arms wrap around her. Before she knew it, she was in Jack's arms. It had been almost 7 years since she had last experienced this simple pleasure. The Jack she was clinging to now was as tough as steel. Despite his size, Jack had no trouble lifting her off her feet. "It was a great coaching job," Jack praised her. "Kansas told me you were great. Thank you for that and for taking such good care of the girls." "Thank you for sponsoring us and giving us rooms," Laura replied, hugging Jack. Some of the girls would never have been able to afford either a trip or a place to stay. She confessed to Jack that she was grateful for his generosity. He expressed his willingness to do everything to bring happiness to Kansas, admiring the depth of his feelings for his daughter. He mentioned Kansas's desire for her teammates to experience the same joy she did last year and her belief that the current team was stronger. Jack also praised Laura's coaching abilities, suggesting that she was the best coach. Kansas playfully scolded her father for snuggling up to the coach and jokingly threatened to start calling her Coach Mom if he didn't let her go so everyone else could join in the hug. After the game, the entire team and numerous fans stayed to watch the upcoming match. The next day, they had to face the winner of this game. Laura was determined that her girls would observe and absorb as much information as possible about the style of play of their rivals. She understood that they would have to give their all to have a chance to win. The next morning, Kansas led her team to victory in a 5-on-3 game. She scored 5 goals, demonstrating her exceptional speed and precise footwork, so the opponents couldn't keep up with her. This victory took the Ridge Runners to the semifinals. The semifinal game was scheduled for the afternoon, against the team Kansas had faced last year. Before the game, Kansas exchanged a few words with the girls from the opposing team, demonstrating her love for her former teammates. It was obvious to both the Ridge Runners and their fans that Kansas was strongly attached to her former teammates. Both team members and adults liked Jack Masterson, especially the moms who supported the team. The stands were only on one side of the field, and fans of both teams were scattered all over. Jack received hugs and well wishes from several mothers. By the end of the game, Laura and the rest of the audience saw Jack from a new perspective. The tournament was a charity event, and the judges were local schoolgirls. The parents and coaches acknowledged that, despite some compensation, the girls were not professional judges. The game came to a standstill when one of the referees accidentally knocked the ball out of bounds. The ball was mistakenly given to the opposing team, which led to a pause in the game. A large man in his 30s entered the field, and both teams were shocked when he started shouting at a teenage girl, hurling threats and obscenities in her direction. Laura immediately approached the man, but stopped when she saw the girl burst into tears and run to the sideline where Jack was waiting. Jack held her close while she cried uncontrollably. The woman sitting on the podium spoke, capturing everyone's attention. "Jack Masterson is going to teach this guy a lesson," she announced. Apparently, the man heard her words as he approached Jack with an aggressive demeanor. "Maybe I got too carried away. I didn't mean anything bad," he muttered. Jack, with a stern expression, told him to apologize to Macy and leave. Patting the girl on the back, he praised the children for their diligence and dedication, emphasizing the need to express gratitude and support towards them. The man thought about Jack's words, considering the consequences of his actions. Suddenly, a woman's voice rang out from the stands, urging the man to accept Jack's offer before the situation escalated. Laura determined that the voice belonged to a confident blonde woman in her 40s, dressed in jeans and a cotton shirt. It dawned on Laura that this was the same woman who had earlier offered a drink to the girl who sought refuge with Jack. Most likely, she was the girl's mother. The big man came to a conclusion. "I'm sorry, miss. I acted too fast. You girls are doing a great job refereeing," he said, turning around and walking towards the parking lot. Everyone watched as the girl in Jack's arms slowly came to her senses. Jack took a napkin out of his pocket and handed it to her. She smiled at him, wiped her eyes, and then stood on tiptoe to kiss Jack on the cheek. "Thank you, Jack," she said. "I knew that you would stop this terrible man. Mom was right to say that you were ready to confront him. I felt your tension. I'm grateful that he didn't hurt you." Then the girl returned to the field, receiving applause and cheers from the fans and players. When the applause died down, officials gathered to determine the remaining time and possession of the ball. Maya had attended Jack's yoga class last year, as her mom mentioned, noticing the curious stares of the fans. She couldn't help but smile. In their eyes, Jack was like a beacon of strength and protection. No one dared to disrespect a woman when Jack was around. He just wouldn't allow it. Rick Jefferson, by contrast, was a formidable figure known for his willingness to engage in physical confrontations. the mother of one of the Ridge Runners players expressed fears that Rick might harm Jack. "Jack Masterson," she exclaimed in amazement. "Have you ever seen him in action?" Jack was ready to fight this guy, no doubt. The game resumed only after the referees, together with the tournament organizers, intervened and resolved the problem. With less than a minute left in the game, Kansas quickly took possession of the ball and executed a long pass to a teammate running down the sideline. The player managed to get the ball into the corner of the goal, providing their team with the winning score. After the game, Kansas hugged several members of the opposing team, demonstrating impeccable sportsmanship skills. Jack couldn't help but be proud of what she had done. Macy's mother hugged Jack with the same force as her daughter had a few minutes earlier. "Macy really admires you, Jack. Since you came into her life, her grades have improved, and next year she plans to go to a public college to become a teacher. You really changed her for the better," she said gratefully. One of the fathers from the Ridge Runners asked, "Why is Rick Jefferson here?" To which another parent explained, "Sarah, his niece, scored the winning goal. She must be feeling extremely uncomfortable." The championship game was scheduled for the next morning on Columbus Day, when schools were closed for the holiday. An awards ceremony was scheduled immediately after the game. The Ridge Runners advanced to the finals, demonstrating their talent and preparation. The Stone Ridge fans watched with pride as their team rapidly improved in the last minutes of the game. A player from the Kansas team managed to intercept a pass from an opponent, rushed past all the players, and scored the winning goal. Despite all the efforts of the Ridge Runners, their experienced opponents managed to score a goal in the last minute. In the remaining moments, the Runners tried to organize an offensive but were defeated, conceding only one goal. Laura watched with pride as her girls hugged each other in the winning team. The girls' parents and fans joined them on the field to express their support for the players. The award presentation was inevitable. When Laura took the stage to receive the trophy for second place, the Ridge Runners players and fans burst into wild applause. The MVP award of the tournament was given to the player of the winning team. Kansas was called on stage to present the sportsmanship trophy, which she proudly demonstrated to her team and fans. She held it high above her head, beaming with a smile. After the ceremony, Kansas accepted Jack's congratulations and asked if she could ride home in a van with several other girls. Jack agreed, confirming with her parents that there was space and responsible drivers. As Kansas's van pulled out of the parking lot, Jack felt Laura's hand slip into his own. "Jack, you're doing a great job with the adorable Kansas girl." Laura noticed Jack watching Kansas drive away and decided to approach him. "Despite the divorce, of course, I believe we should be able to have polite conversations." Jack seemed forgiving enough for that. "I have no idea how to raise my daughter," Jack admitted. "Women are a complete mystery to me." Jack's words stung Laura, but she didn't show it. "Jack, I was wrong. I have no defense or justification for my actions. You were right to leave me, and I admit it. All I can hope for is that in the future we will be able to communicate without hostility and anger." "Laura, you were right about everything. I don't need to dwell on the past. You did a great job with the girls' training, and Kansas appreciates your high standards. She knows that you could have made it difficult for her to stay on the team, but you decided not to. The two of us are grateful to you for your maturity and kindness. Maybe I was a fool when we got married." "I don't think I've ever been intentionally rude," Laura replied calmly. "I genuinely enjoy spending time with Kansas, and I hope we can stay friends after the football season ends, if that's okay with you. If you're worried about my influence on her, or you don't want me to be around her, I totally understand. I just hope that you will continue to participate in her life," Jack replied. "I didn't mean to say that you're bad. It won't hurt for her to have a positive adult around," Laura admitted. "But it looks like you're doing well. Everything I've seen and heard about you has been positive, but you have to remember what you saw and heard before you left Stone Ridge. It didn't paint me in a good light." Jack noticed Laura's parents watching them. Laura felt guilty looking at the disappointment on their faces. "I couldn't bring myself to tell them the truth about why you left," she confessed. Jack reassured her, "They are understanding parents. It's not your fault that they blame me." "Thank you for talking to me," she said, feeling relieved that the guilt had finally receded. Jack thanked her for her kind words, after which she went home. Laura's parents participated in a 3-day tournament and returned with her. Laura wasn't shocked when her mother started questioning her. "So, what did you and Jack talk about?" Brenda asked. "Only about the family," Laura replied. "I praised him for doing a great job raising a child. He tried to downplay the compliment and then mentioned what wonderful parents I have." "Did he say that before or after he noticed that we were glaring at him?" Brenda asked. "Is he really that understanding? He knows you don't like him because he saw the way you looked at him. In fact, he takes it as a sign of respect from you. It's hard to believe that he can be so reasonable about everything except being faithful to his marriage," Laura's father grumbled. 3 days later, Laura came to the family dinner feeling depressed. Kate quickly caught her sister's mood and asked, "What's the matter, sis? You look upset." Sarah Jefferson came up to me after training and told me that her Uncle Rick has connections in the area where Jack used to live. It turns out that when Jack adopted Kansas, he fraudulently indicated that he was still married to me. This deception made it easier for him to adopt a teenage girl as a single man. Rick was outraged by Jack's actions at the tournament and publicly criticized him for lying in the adoption papers. He even questioned Jack's ability to be a suitable parent. As a result, an investigation will be conducted, and Jack may lose custody of Kansas. Sarah mentioned that Kansas was crying when she shared the news with her. "I know Jack, he won't give up on Kansas. He will leave the country with her before he allows anyone to come between them," Laura said. "He tends to run when faced with a problem," Laura's father admitted. "Laura, you're still married to him," Kate said. "He told me that, in his opinion, you divorced him." "Do you think he divorced you?" Kate asked. "None of you have thought about it. Divorces are formalized legally, and people receive notifications," she added. "You are as committed to your marriage now as you were the day you said yes to each other in church," Brenda replied dispassionately. "It doesn't matter," she continued, dismissing the remark. "He still lives as a bachelor with his adopted daughter, although with his mother, Laura, it's time to contact Jack. He and Kansas can move in with you and become the family he promised the court," Kate urged. "I will not tolerate this," Brenda said. "You don't know him like you used to. There's a possibility he may show aggression or cruelty. Putting Laura in danger is not an option, Mom," Jack assured. "Jack is not evil, he will never hurt me," Laura added confidently. "I'll talk to him now." Jack was sitting at the kitchen table, with a tearful Kansas on his lap, crying into his shirt. His worried mother watched what was happening. The doorbell rang, and Janet hurried to answer it. "Laura, can I talk to you and Kansas?" Laura's voice came from the doorway. "I'm sorry, Laura, but now is not the right time. Kansas and I are getting ready for a trip and need to pack our things. I'll have Kansas call you while we're on the road, okay?" Jack replied impatiently. "You won't need to pack for a long trip," Laura added quietly. "Please don't," Jack replied impatiently. "It doesn't concern you, except for your football team, which is not my top priority right now, Laura." "She's my daughter too, Laura." Kansas stopped crying and looked at Laura with red eyes. Janet gasped in shock at Laura's words and sank into a chair, staring at her. "If you think you can take Kansas away from me, then you're going to have to fight," Jack growled. "You have no right to call her your daughter," Laura reminded him. "Jack, I'm still your wife. The adoption papers clearly state that I am her mother, and they have my signature on them. I want you and Kansas to move in with me. If we end up under investigation, it will look like we confessed," Janet said optimistically. "This will solve all the problems," she exclaimed. "Kansas will be able to stay in the city, go to the same school with her friends, and you can help Jeff with the business. This plan could be feasible until Laura gets to the point where she breaks up with me. She can evict us at any time for any reason. If I make a simple mistake like leaving the toilet seat up, she can kick me out. I can't put Kansas in a situation where she could get hurt," Jack added. "Jack Masterson, I would never do that. I've made mistakes in the past, but that doesn't reflect who I am now. I'm willing to put your name on the contract and even let you pay the mortgage if it makes you feel better. I cherish Kansas as a daughter, and it would be an honor for me to become her guardian," Laura said. "Maybe we should give the coach a chance. She's kind and won't hurt us." What do you think, Jack? Laura urged. Jack silently considered the situation, coming to a conclusion. He looked back at the three women who were watching him closely. The three women screamed with joy, and Kansas jumped up and hurried to Laura. Jack watched as they hugged tightly, with Laura even kissing the girl on the forehead. Turning his gaze to his mother, he noticed tears flowing down her cheeks. Jack wiped his eyes with the back of his hand and stood up. I don't want to interrupt this wonderful moment of love, but I think it's time for us to act, Jack said. We don't know when the official guests will arrive, or if they will arrive at all. We need to inspect your house and understand how everything will be arranged. Laura readily agreed. Why don't you come with me right now to my house so we can figure out what we need, she suggested. Can I go with the coach? I mean, Mom? Kansas asked, and Jack supported her. Of course. Why do I feel like I've lost control? Jack mused. Looking around Laura's small ranch house, he noted, you only have 2 bedrooms. I don't understand how this can work. It's simple math, Kansas replied with a sly grin. Jack firmly stated, I will not live in the same room with Kansas. She should have her own space. Kansas agreed, noting, I'm a teenage girl, not your wife. Jack objected, as a married couple, we should live together without problems. Because we started this farce to seem like a normal family, he admitted. That's not just a pretense. Sleeping in the same room with Laura would still be a farce, Kansas teased playfully. Is it really that difficult? Laura interrupted, standing her ground. Kansas should have her own room, Jack. You can sleep in the same bedroom with me. I have a double bed, so your honor will remain intact. I'll even give you 2 closets and some space in my wardrobe. Jack and Kansas stayed in the house until 11 o'clock at night. Laura was moved to tears when Kansas asked her a sincere question before they all went to bed. Is it okay if I call you Mom? Kansas asked. Deciding it would look natural if someone checked on them, with tears in her eyes, Laura whispered, nothing would make me happier. Kansas asked what to call her at school, to which Laura replied, you should still call me Coach. Jack warned, I don't think it's a good idea. We want to maintain our current behavior and show that we have strong family ties. If Kansas approached you as coach last week, she should keep doing it. After training, I will be the only one who goes home with my mom to help with dinner and cleaning the house, Kansas assured. I'm glad to be part of a real family. Jack was about to warn Kansas against getting too involved in family matters when he noticed Laura shaking her head slightly, making it clear that he should drop the subject. Laura watched as Jack came out of the bathroom and carefully climbed under the covers. Do you sleep in your pajamas now? You always used to sleep naked, she said. Jack chuckled softly. I'm trying to be a gentleman since Kansas came to live with me. I have pajamas that I wear when I get up. I won't call the police if you accidentally hug or cuddle up to me in the middle of the night, Laura teased. I know that. I may seem repulsive to you now, but if you forget who I am in your dream and behave yourself, thank you, Jack assured her. I won't complain. He rolled over on his back and quickly fell asleep. Jack was known for getting up early, waking up at 5 in the morning. He realized that he was still lying on his side of the bed, which meant that she had moved overnight. The next evening after soccer practice, Laura went to her mother's house. Kansas followed her in and stood in front of Brenda. Brenda stubbornly refused to express her disapproval of the situation to Laura and Kansas, but all her resolve collapsed when Kansas asked, Is it okay if I call you Grandma? Of course you can. Brenda exclaimed, hugging the girl tenderly. Do you want milk and cookies? She suggested. I just made it, Kate came into the kitchen and joked, so Mom's heart has already melted. Then she hugged Kansas and said, I am your Aunt Kate, and you are my beloved niece, Kansas. Hooray, exclaimed Kansas, beaming. I'm going to have a new grandmother and aunt, so hopefully we'll have more opportunities to communicate with everyone. Dad and Grandma don't get along very well, so we'll have to adjust to his work schedule. Actually, I really like your dad, Kate replied. He's very attractive. And how does he get along with your mom? I think they're fine, Kansas replied. They had to sit and discuss etiquette in the bedroom for half an hour. It looks like my family is not quite ordinary. At least, not yet, Kansas reflected. Oh, do you think there is such a possibility? Kate asked. Well, my father has a unique appearance. He is very red-skinned, and my mom looks like a mannequin, only a little more crooked, so I don't see much hope in that, Kansas admitted, causing Laura to blush deeply. Aren't you thinking about reuniting with Jack forever? Brenda asked. But isn't that the main thing? Kansas replied. Laura came to her mother to learn how to cook, not to listen to lectures about family relations. I do not know how it will turn out. Jack is not happy with me right now, so you can at least take comfort in that, Laura objected. Shortly after Laura and Kansas started dinner, Jack entered the house and quickly left through the back door with a notepad and measuring tape. After dinner, Jack expressed his thoughts and concerns. I'll feel much calmer if I can take care of it. This will help us save money and give us extra space, Jack suggested. Laura, trying to remain calm, asked, Is it really so disgusting for you to share a bed with me? Are you sick of my presence? No, of course not. It's just that we're cramped. We can still use the master bedroom, but with more comfort and more closets, Jack reassured her. I will agree to this on one condition. You promise to sleep next to me the whole time we live together. Jack met Laura's determined gaze and realized she wasn't joking. Catching Kansas's barely concealed grin, Jack shrugged and announced to both of them, Let's do it. The football team continued its winning streak in the league. When the season came to an end, Jack caught Laura recruiting Kansas for the volleyball team. By the end of their conversation, Laura had successfully convinced Kansas to join the team. Jack watched curiously as Kansas and Laura got closer. They shared jokes, went shopping, cooked together, and even played sports. Kansas seemed happier than ever in Laura's company. Jack's relationship with Laura was a little more complicated. She respected his boundaries, maintaining a friendly but not romantic or obsessive relationship. She never complained about the repairs being carried out in her house. Thanks to the mild climate, work was in full swing, and they were able to work until late autumn. After Jack drove the excavator to the construction site in the first week after it moved, the completion of the house by Christmas pleased Kansas and Laura. They were looking forward to expanding the space and increasing the area of the cabinets. Kansas especially wanted to move into Laura's old bedroom, where she would have a separate bathroom and a more spacious wardrobe for clothes and accessories. Jack and Laura often discussed how they would respond to any requests from agencies regarding Kansas and their family situation and developed a plan that both approved. But over time, they began to doubt that anyone would even come to them for an interview, or that their fears were exaggerated. The sleep routine remained unchanged. Both Laura and Jack always went to bed in their pajamas. Jack no longer worried about accidentally touching Laura while sleeping because she never brought up the issue. One night, lying in bed and thinking about the offer he was going to make, he noticed how Laura suddenly tensed up. He was stunned when she reached out and gently placed her hand on his chest, letting out a contented sigh as she sank into a peaceful slumber. 2 days before Thanksgiving, Laura and Kansas returned home from school and noticed Jack having a serious conversation with a blonde woman in the driveway. The conversation continued while Laura parked the car in the garage. Soon, Jack entered the house where Kansas was already in her room. When he reached Laura, he spoke. Laura, leaning over the sink, whispered intently to Jack, "What did she want, Jack? Was she angry? What did she tell you?" Jack hesitated before answering. "Her husband Chuck has a brain tumor. He's dying, and she asked if I would visit him." Laura's eyes widened in fear, and she pleaded, "Don't do this. He wants to hurt you, Jack. Please don't let him." Jack replied firmly, "I told her that I would visit him, even if it's just to watch him die. I'm interested to hear his point of view. Most likely, he will call me obscene, perhaps even try to convince you that our meeting was not isolated. He will mock my performance and laugh in your face. He's cruel. I take responsibility for my actions. I should have been more careful. But if he really respected women, he wouldn't have harassed a married woman," said Laura. "Why did you contact him?" Jack asked. "It doesn't look like you had any problems that night. I remember how you kept mentioning his name and praising him. It overwhelmed me. I considered hurting both of them but eventually decided to leave through the back door and drive away." Laura tearfully confessed. I didn't understand my actions. He was a popular football player at school, and I was a married sophomore. Despite him being inaccessible to most women, he showed me kindness. I knew about his intentions, but foolishly thought I could handle it if you didn't find out. It was my only carelessness, and it destroyed everything I cherished. My youth and naivety led me astray, and I never considered you responsible for my mistake. The sight of your ring on the kitchen table confirmed that you found out about my betrayal. Now, I'm torturing myself. Despite my love for Kansas, we are no longer a real family. I understand that I will never be able to atone for my actions. I'm thinking about expanding the house even more. You'll get a spacious bedroom with a large bathroom and a huge dressing room, as well as a half room for guests. Would you like to see my idea? Jack offered enthusiastically. Laura replied, It sounds great, but unfortunately, I can't afford it. I've had financial difficulties with a mortgage in the past. Jack was sympathetic and offered, I'm ready to take care of all the expenses if you allow. You're making a significant sacrifice for both Kansas and me. We'll never experience the love that should bind us as a family. It's completely my fault, and I understand it every day, Laura said regretfully in a gentle tone. He asked, Why didn't you tell me you were unhappy, or that you wanted to seek another relationship? Her answer was gentle, I didn't want to pursue other men. I just wanted to feel special for one night. A popular athlete from high school took an interest in me. The irony is that after you left, I became wiser. You've become more attractive, kinder, and completely dedicated to your work. You've become a more perfect man in all important aspects. Surprisingly, that was the last time I made love, Laura said. You were the only man who truly made love to me. I suppose I should thank you for that. I realized how striking the contrast between love and intimacy is, and this is very important. I don't think I'll ever forget the moment when I was rushing home from that seminar to spend the night making love, but found that someone else had taken my place. Jack replied dejectedly, You almost destroyed me, Laura. I was ready to sacrifice everything for you, and you were so close to understanding everything. An apology can't undo the years of heartache I've been through. I understand that, Jack. I sincerely understand. I don't expect you to forgive me. I know I don't deserve it. You're one of those people who can't just forget that I didn't respect you, Laura explained. I also face the consequences of my stupidity. I'm stuck in a loveless marriage with a good man and a beautiful daughter. The realization that I had everything but wasted it is a painful truth. Whenever I see you or think about Kansas, it serves as a reminder of my stupidity. Over time, the pain is not dulled, on the contrary, it has intensified, as my feelings for you and Kansas have grown deeper. It became clear that you could never love me again, and I couldn't be Kansas's mother without you. I understand that now. I just try to cherish every moment that we spend together, knowing that in the end, everything will end, most likely sooner than it should, Laura admitted. Every evening when we get ready for bed, I lie down and hope for your touch, kisses, and love, but they never happen, Laura said sadly. It's not hard for you to resist me, she added. You just put up with me. It's my own fault. Most men wouldn't be able to resist me, but the one I want doesn't show any interest. Karma is cruel. In early December, Jack visited a local hospital and asked to see Chuck Harding. What he saw when he entered the room confused him. The man lying on the bed looked very fragile, as if he weighed only 100 pounds. His skin clung tightly to his bones, giving him the appearance of a skeleton. Jack, thank you for coming, the patient greeted him with light humor. If you want to slap me or even strangle me, go ahead. I deserve it. I just had to stop by to express my joy that you're on your deathbed, Jack replied sarcastically. I even tried to smile for the occasion. That's why I told my wife that I needed to see you. I believe that my suffering would bring you at least some comfort, Chuck confessed. It gives me a sense of peace to realize that I'm trying to fix everything, even if it means my own death. Jack shook his head in disbelief. That's nonsense, he replied. No one wants to suffer, and no one wants to see someone else suffer. What do you really want? Chuck lowered his head in shame. I know I offended you, Jack. I've spent most of my life being a terrible person. You caught me in a compromising situation with your wife, and yet you spared my life, even though you wanted to end it. As I was walking down the stairs, my gaze fell on an old shotgun leaning against the wall. Laura only noticed the ring lying on the table. The suffering in her eyes that evening remained unsurpassed in my memory. I'm forever in your debt, but I don't have the means to repay you. My existence has no value, and that's obvious. The only option left for me is to go to the next world, regardless of whether you are present or not. It is inevitable. I'm just offering you the opportunity to witness my demise. It may bring you comfort, but it won't hurt me, Harding concluded. Jack asked, how will your wife react to this? I think she'll find it pretty grim. I explained to her what I did to you and Laura. She understands that I'm trying to ease my guilt. My death will not give me absolution, but it will bring you peace, so she supports my decision. I'm just asking you not to celebrate my death. It will only hurt Beth, who doesn't deserve it. Why did you do that, Chuck? You had a lot of other women. Laura was everything to me, everything I've ever had or wanted, and you totally ruined her, Jack snapped. Because I was a jerk, Chuck admitted. I could, but why should that be the reason? It wasn't until I met Beth that I realized how much of a jerk I was. I didn't care that your marriage was falling apart. Laura meant nothing to me. I was so selfish. I'm very ashamed to talk about it. Jack asked, it wasn't personal? Were you trying to ruin my life or separate us for some reason? I've always wondered why you decided to be with a married woman when there are so many single people around. I barely knew you at that time. I wasn't thinking about you. I was just spending time with someone else's wife, Chuck confessed. She's a beautiful woman, but to me, she was just a married woman on the side. If I felt better, I'd want to fight you, Jack threatened. I grew up a little later. I have no excuse for what I did. I understand that now, Chuck replied. You're a notorious scoundrel, Jack. I'll do everyone a favor if I smother you with this pillow. True, but you will face the consequences. Killing a dying person is just as wrong as killing a healthy one. Why don't you come here when you have the opportunity? It's likely that you'll find me in a joyful search. Jack had never felt such rage before. This man ruined his marriage just to satisfy his own desires. I accept your challenge, Jack said sternly. Jack stayed true to his promise and began to visit Chuck Harding regularly without informing either Laura or Kansas. He admitted that his actions were not entirely helpful. During the third visit, Jack met Chuck's wife, Beth, and their young son. Unable to find the strength to rejoice in the death of the wicked man in the presence of his family, Jack quietly left the room. He made a silent vow to continue watching death, but with a newfound sense of compassion. Harding got what he deserved. The next time Jack visited Chuck, he found him deep in thought. You left because my wife and child were here, didn't you? Chuck asked. Jack replied, it's hard to be happy about someone's death when innocent people are suffering because of it, isn't it? I'm here to witness your death, Jack said, feeling pathetic. I don't hold a grudge against your family. Chuck then opened up to Jack, telling him about his son and what he likes, talking about the meeting with his wife, and how it affected his life. Jack closely followed Chuck's attempts to evoke sympathy, but Jack knew that empathy wasn't something Chuck could get from him. When Jack visited Chuck on Christmas Eve, he noticed how Chuck had noticeably deteriorated since their last meeting. Having set a clear goal for himself, Jack did not waste time and addressed Chuck directly. Chuck, I despise your actions, but I refuse to maintain this hatred. I realize that the ultimate revenge is prosperity and a full life. I want to assure you that I will take care of your wife and son. You will leave knowing that the man from whom you took your wife will now provide for your family, Jack said. Chuck replied weakly, admitting that he understood Jack's attempt at revenge. Jack admitted that he did not know how to take revenge and expressed regret for his actions towards Chuck and Laura. Despite the fact that he had committed a heinous act, Chuck found it ironic that he had ended up benefiting his own family. Chuck tried to make amends for his past actions. I'm not coming back. I won't be able to watch your pain and death anymore. The pleasure left me a long time ago, Jack said. Chuck replied, you do realize that, in fact, you forgive me. You showed a resilience that no one could forgive. I've never said that, but you can interpret it any way you want, Jack replied. How can you find the strength to forgive a scoundrel like me and at the same time have difficulty forgiving a woman like Laura who loves you so deeply? How did I deserve your forgiveness and she didn't? Chuck tenderly acknowledged that Jack had indirectly expressed his forgiveness to him. Chuck accepted the impending death feeling calm, knowing that Jack would take care of his loved ones. Chuck also subtly criticized Jack for not being skilled enough in seeking revenge. Chuck expressed his wish that Jack would convey his apologies to Laura if they never met again, but Jack left the hospital in a rage, feeling that he was being manipulated and demanding his forgiveness. Jack believed that Chuck's request to forgive Laura would never come true, believing that hell would freeze over before that happened. As Jack drove, he reflected on his recent conversation with Chuck Harding. The man had really influenced him. Jack had to admit he knew he shouldn't have visited the hospital that day. When Jack arrived home, he found his driveway clogged with cars, and he had to park on the next street. He had completely forgotten about the Christmas party that Kansas and Laura were throwing. The construction of a new extension to their house had just been completed, and the furniture, including a large double bed, had been delivered the day before. Laura invited all her friends, relatives, and work colleagues to the gathering. Kansas asked many of her friends to come visit her. Still angry at the harsh words he exchanged with Chuck, Jack pushed open the door and entered the room, causing the guests to turn around and be silent. Laura and Kansas were busy serving drinks and snacks. When Jack came into the living room, it was immediately clear that something was wrong with him. Laura had never seen him drink a lot before, but that thought flashed through her mind as Jack's eyes searched the room. When his gaze landed on her, he froze in place. "What's the matter, Jack?" asked Laura with concern in her voice. "Do you really want to marry me?" Jack asked urgently. "Do you love me?" Laura replied quietly. "Yes, I do." A wife devotes all her love to her husband, belonging only to him. Despite Laura's father's attempt to intervene, Kate silenced him with a gesture. Tears welled up in Laura's eyes as she agreed. "I understand," Jack stated. The husband provides the family with everything he has and deserves respect. Ignoring the stares of others, Laura silently communicated with Jack. A devoted wife would not protest if her husband desired her at any moment, even on this huge bed. "I agree," she nodded, and Jack easily lifted her into his arms. "Kansas, close the door, please," Jack ordered, and their daughter quickly followed his order, closing the bedroom door behind them. "Don't leave early because of the guests." "I'll entertain them," Kate soothed. "What happened?" Laura's mother asked. "Is Laura going to be okay?" "Oh, she's going to be fine," Kate replied with a grin. "For the first time in many years, my sister will be fine." Jack and Laura left the bedroom half an hour later, having just showered and changed their clothes. Laura snuggled up to Jack, and the guests began to chat frivolously. "Wow, that's fast," said one of Jack's equipment operators. "I hope the boss managed to finish the job." "He did a great job." "Thank you for asking," Laura said affectionately and gave Jack a quick kiss on the cheek. "Jack, I don't know the details of what happened between you and my daughter, but her mother and I are glad that everything is okay now," Laura's father said, holding out his hand. "Just try not to let it happen again." Jack shook his father-in-law's hand. Jack looked at Laura and replied, "I don't believe it's possible. Laura and I will be together for a very long time. Actually, it was my suggestion that we live together to avoid possible problems with Kansas adoption. Kate's gone." "It's funny that this threat never materialized," Kansas added with a chuckle. "Before we moved into my mom's house, I talked to people at school. I told them that we have a wonderful family. Mom and Dad love me and each other. I knew that eventually, they would be convinced of this. I kept quiet about it because I wanted us to be together, and eventually, we moved in with my mom." "Why were you so emotional when you came home, Jack?" the inquisitive Laura asked him. "I guess I was trying to figure out who I offended and why," he replied. In the end, he realized that revenge only leads to self-flagellation and that he needs to start treating himself better in the future. Laura will have to endure the consequences of her actions. She would have to prove to Jack for the rest of her life that she would never give in to him again.